welcome, everyone, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Welcome to the very first edition of Remixing Politics and Culture with me, your host, Pam, in 2024. And you know that since it's 2024, you know what's up. It's going to be a wild ride in politics this year. You know that. And I'm going to do my very best to bring you some of the most interesting candidates and thought leaders and what have you from across the country. So we'll buckle up together and get used and have a good time together and learn something, right? I really want to bring people on to help us all encourage people to vote. That is so critical, very critical, and to think critically. And let me say that again. The key word is thinking critically about all of those things that we hear, the dirty tricks that we may be hearing. You might think that it's true. The false narratives that you may see on social media that you might think is true, that it's not. So you have to think critically, and we'll talk about all of those things on this show. Okay, so for those of you who are new to my channel, I am Pam. I'm a public relations and marketing professional with a passion for social justice, voter advocacy, and culture. And tonight, we're going to discuss the attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI. I have some wonderful women as guests tonight. And speaking of the DEI again, but we're going to focus particularly in on our academic institutions of higher learning. Recently, the one and only Black president ever in Harvard's 387-year history was forced to resign. And I will say that all three of the university presidents really did struggle in answering the questions posed by Congresswoman Stefanik. Harvard, MIT, and University of Penn presidents were all interviewed. The University of Pennsylvania's president resigned. The MIT president got some much needed communications assistance and issued a statement with support from her board. And she was supported and she stayed on. But Dr. Gay, after receiving grace from Harvard and support, all of a sudden, she was charged with plagiarism from her 1990s dissertation that she earned, by the way, her PhD from Harvard. Harvard investigated and found no cause of academic fraud in her work. However, they succumbed to the pressure, and Dr. Gay resigned. We had another higher ed debacle with the mishandling of Nikole Hannah-Jones at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. The common thread there has been that Black women are being attacked, women overall, just as the president at the University of Pennsylvania was pushed out by right-wing weaponization. We're going to discuss the attack on DEI with these wonderful thought leaders that I have for you this evening. The first up is Mary Rarick. Hey, Mary. Mary, hey, hi there. Mary is known professionally as a caffeine-addicted super connector. She is a Sorkin enthusiast and a communications consultant. Mary has leveraged her guilt and rage hangover from 2016 to step out of her introverted shell, I can't believe that, to become a grassroots political activist. Mary is a producer and host of You Can't Beat Blue, a YouTube show, and she is a volunteer for Run for Something. She resides in Portland, Oregon with her husband and rescue cats. Welcome back to the show, Mary.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Pam. I'm pleased to be here. Honored to.
I'm so glad that you're here. Next up, we have Reverend Dr. Deborah Jenkins, who is simply a Renaissance woman, period. She has come on this platform and blew us all away discussing reparations as a one woman act. She just did the whole reparations thing and took us to school and back again. Um, she is, among many things, the co-pastor of Faith at Works Christian Church. She's an adjunct professor at John Jay College. She is a principal grant and proposal researcher and business development consultant from the Bronx, New York. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Deborah Jenkins.
Thank you so much, Pam, for having me again and for introducing me to the coffee lover, Mary, right here. And I'm looking so forward to having this discussion with you all tonight.
Yes, absolutely. And let's see here. And last but certainly not least, I have Noemi Ujan Perez. Noemi is an award-winning communications and public affairs executive, an expert on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she's many more things, but it'll take us all day to get down her whole resume. But she is my dear and wonderful soror of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Welcome back to the show, soror Noemi. You're muted.
I apologize. Thank you for having me, Pam, Sora, and pleasure being on this platform with the rest of you phenomenal power women.
They are. You all are. I'm so excited. Oh, the chat has really, Lord have mercy. Look at there. All these happy New Years. Even Paul Tucci. Happy New Year, Paul. I know you're putting your kids to bed. Loretta, I'm gonna put these. Francis, hey Francis, I see Francis. In order for you, if you want to talk on stage, you're gonna have to connect your mic device. That's what it says. Okay. Hi, Mary. Oh, there's your friend. And Kath. Okay. All right. Okay. So we've got so much to unpack, everybody. So, ladies, let's dig in to the topics. So, listen. As I was researching Dr. Gay's situation, hold on here. As I was researching Dr. Gay's situation, her ascension to the presidency of Harvard and her forced exodus, I really kind of felt traumatized. And at that time, Dr. Jenkins, I'm gonna call you Dr. Deborah. Dr. Deborah had messaged me, and I was like, I'm just feeling bad. Because I was really traumatized because what I fully realized that even our allies, which Dr. Gay had, she has allies, they have a breaking point when it comes to support. So Mary, I'm going to start with you because I know you to be an ally. I know you to be an ally. And I want you to express yourself as to what did you think about what happened to Dr. Gay?
She was bullied, plain and simple. I mean, she was bullied. She was put in a position with the questioning where it was no win. They were all put in that position. And you, as a PR professional, know you could probably see she was not adequately prepared. They were not adequately prepared and supported. And for what they went into, they walked into a lion's den. And it was a sham. The whole thing was a sham. And they sat there for 4 hours and they behaved, those professional women behaved as the smart academic women they are. They answered those questions with nuance and they came for a discussion. I don't think they realized they weren't prepared for what they had landed in. And that was upsetting. As far as the allyship and what went wrong there, what I see, and correct me if I'm wrong, is as soon as the threats of money being withdrawn happened, that's when everybody dropped. that's when people stepped away. It was, to me, it looked like the money was the problem, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm. So, well, you know what? When money gets strange, people get, people start, they have to clear their throats more, and they have to get up and move around and look at what the deal is. Noemi, what do you think about what Mary said, that when the money became an issue, then everybody kind of backed away?
So I'm purposely wearing my hat today. It's my political hat. So part of my work, my wheelhouse is political strategist work. And I have to say there's a political partisanship element to all of this. So it's not just the money. There was partisanship involved. This is something that unfortunately has looped Dr. Gay in. We know that Harvard has been under attack now for years for their DEI initiatives. For background, prior to her promotion to president, she was the dean of one of the schools, and she was actually very key to some of their DEI work and initiatives and advancements. But beyond that, and yes, money is part of this, beyond that, we have to pay attention to the fact that this was a very carefully orchestrated campaign by the leaders who have led the attacks against critical race theory, against DEI, that were actually part of the SCOTUS case that we lost. So how can a Harvard, right, battle against that? And yes, add to that, donors start leaving. Some powerhouse donors at that. For the audience, it is actually also very key to pay attention to the fact that the schools, Harvard, MIT, and UPenn, were called to testify to Congress. The why is, obviously, when you are an institution, private as you might be, if you are receiving any kind of federal funding, okay, that could include students coming into your institution through, I forget what they're called, by federally subsidized scholarships. Yes. If you are called to the rug by Congress, by federal leaders, right? That is another form of pulling on your money. And so there were a lot of elements. It was not just about Dr. Gay. It was not just about Harvard. And I'm put it out there. It is really also about making sure, right? That the powers that be don't see too much change where diversity and inclusion is concerned. And lastly, where the piece of partisanship is concerned, we are living within an administration that has been very vocal, and I'm referring to the White House, that has been very vocal about understanding and seeing Black women specifically, right, as a power, as a force of nature within the Democratic Party. Well, people, if you are on the opposite side of the spectrum, on the GOP side, and you want to chip away at the Democrats and what they're doing, what do? You tackle out, you start chipping away at that power force. And unfortunately it's Black women. It's unfortunately is horribly in our face. And unfortunately, Dr. Gay was the latest one to be tackled by it. So Mary, there's my answer to you in all the different layers. But money makes the world go round, and politics is part of that.
Yes, politics is a huge thing, and money makes it go round. That's absolutely for sure, and it's sickening the amount of money involved in politics. Dr. Deborah, give us your thoughts.
I mean, clearly money is always an issue. And for those of you who have taken time to listen to any portion of the 3-hour-long interview that the comedian Cat Williams did with Shannon Sharp, on
Yes.
Club Shay Shay, he makes a point about money in terms of billionaires, which Mr. Ackman is one. And money is a powerful force in our world, not only in our country, but I would rather look at the power structure that you were just talking about, Noemi. There can only be granted so much access to what is seen by some as unfettered power, coming from the marginalized historically, in this case, Black women. Because the power structure, and let's be clear, still firmly remains with white men in this country. And I might say throughout the world, but definitely since we're here in the United States, they have effectively put a rift between Black women and Black men, choosing to instead elevate Black women over Black men so that they are so far behind that we only see first being Black women. In the case of Dr. Gay, having reached the pinnacle of success in education as the president of the premier university, I would say second only perhaps, or neck and neck with Oxford University, second to none in the world. That is a level of success that comes with a lot of not only access and the thought of support, but it comes with a lot of conditions. And I have not studied her long, only since the hearings. And from what I've seen of Dr. Gay's work, it is something to be commended. Even the thesis of her dissertation, which has come under scrutiny for plagiarism claims, I think that her title in and of itself, as she speaks about the political power structure of Blacks, it's a threat to the white male structure in this country. And so as it relates to DEI, we've even seen some of the leading tech companies, starting with Google and Meta, retracting the funding that they committed to DEI initiatives in their companies following 2020, the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. Now they're taking that money out. There is a concerted effort by the power structure in this country to ensure that Black people, and that is my area of expertise, not to negate any other groups, but Black people are only able to rise but so far. And when we do allow them to rise, they have so many conditions on them that they will be faced with a choice between maintaining their integrity or continuing to follow what the prescription that has been given to them. I still sit here tonight and say to all of you, I'm proud of Dr. Gay choosing integrity. Even though she was forced out, let's be very clear, she was forced out.
Yes.
She chose integrity, in my opinion.
Yes. Mary, you have, I didn't even have this on my list to ask, but you have a TikTok going around talking about what it is that you didn't know about the whole concept of what Black women go through, what Black people go through in general, but primarily about Black women. So I'm curious, as you were looking into this subject when I asked you to come on the show, did it trigger some more thoughts for you?
So many thoughts. Is the TikTok you're talking about the apology to Black women?
Yes, I think it is.
And for anybody who hasn't seen it, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who haven't, it was when I realized somebody said something, I can't even remember where, but I realized that me referring to a Black woman as being strong, I thought it was a compliment. When I came to realize that the strength is because there's no other choice. They have to be strong in many cases. I'm, not a blanket statement, but just to apologize and for me, it was also a lot of what I do is as I learn things, I share them because my audience is white women, because white women might listen to me, you know? And so and so many white women came in and said, I didn't know, I had no idea. To me, being strong is seen as a compliment. Although when I look back in my life at some of the things that have happened to me, I think, aha, yeah, that strength that I exhibited was not, I can feel that in the tiniest possible way. But just looking at Dr. Gay's situation, where she was in a system that was originally designed to keep her out, to keep people who look like her out of it. How did we even expect? How did I even think that they could possibly protect her? You know, she was excellent. She was extraordinary. And I don't have a PhD, but those of you who do could probably tell me. I mean, there was no plagiarism. She was extraordinary. I mean, Harvard said no plagiarism, right? A little essay, I've heard that's common. Since then, so many people, you know, have had that. So she was just extraordinary. And what it took for her to get to that level, the highest level, as you pointed out, it just kind of takes my breath away.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, it's this whole thing what they're using, what they're weaponizing DEI, that the governor DeSantis in Florida has weaponized so well as this anti-wokeness, all this you know, just this bullying of you know, just changing the narrative that everything that Black or brown people do, it's bad.
Pam, may I say it's become a partisan issue?
Yes, of course, yes, Laura, it has, absolutely. And so they use it so well in a lot of this, and that's why I say when we're listening to all these different speeches and what have you, and the ads and the social media, that we have to be looking at things very critically, because a lot of things are just weaponized, and they're not even true at all. Not true at all. Dr. Deborah, one of the things that happened that I mentioned earlier in the lead was about what happened to Nikole Hannah-Jones here in North Carolina. She is the author, the creator of the 1619 Project. I bought the 1619 Project when it was just in the Times Magazine and used it as stocking stuffers for my family back in 2019 when it came out. Now, of course, it's the book, and the book has been banned, part of the book banning situation. In academia, even with your experience at John Jay College, how do you feel, have you felt any of this attack on DEI within your framework in academia yet? Or
Actually, no. We do have a Black female president at John Jay, and you know, it's a part of the greater CUNY system, the City University of New York. No, and she's actually been there. She's spoken at many of the City University colleges, such as John Jay. But what I can say, and I don't think that we want to go through this entire program avoiding the large elephant in the room, aside from what DeSantis is doing and others like him, is October 7th. We don't want to miss that, because what I have felt academically, and in a similar way to the onslaught of attacks on academics, is I've been very careful. This last semester caught me and many others having to be very careful as we expressed to our students. I'm a political scientist, for those of you who don't know. So this is always something that we're talking about, the climate, around different political issues, partisan issues also, but not to stay there. But we've had to be very, very careful. And so I said, I think to Pam, or either I put on my LinkedIn, we are not okay as academics. We're not afraid, but we know that we cannot freely teach these young minds or middle-aged minds, those who return to school or continue their education. We cannot freely teach in the way that we have for so many years for fear of losing the opportunity to be able to do so. And so while Dr. Gay has gotten to keep her tenured job, I'm happy about that. So has Dr. Jones. She's at Howard now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Pam. So she is. So everyone doesn't have that opportunity to bounce back like a Dr. Jones or to stay put like a Dr. Gay. And so we have to be very thoughtful and strategic in trying to create critical thinkers and not just those who are fed scripted information. And so it's been difficult, but I believe that many still want what Dr. Jones has to offer. But it goes back to what I was saying about allowing the white male power structure, allowing us to gain so much authority and power that they remind us whenever they feel a threat to their own power that they can take us back down. And I think that is the threat that despite, regardless if you are Black, Hispanic, white, Asian, or otherwise, we are under attack in this realm right now. And it's just the beginning.
Right.
I need to connect the dots on something.
And I was going to go to you next too, because I have a specific question for you, but go ahead.
Okay. No, it's regarding the books that you mentioned, Pam. It's regarding the academic component that you mentioned, Dr. Jenkins, and it's regarding a point that someone in the chat made. There was someone in the chat pointed out Christopher Rufo.
Yes, we're going to talk about
it. Mary's nodding her head, and I think we all can have a full conversation on that.
Yeah.
Pay attention to that bouncing ball.
Yeah.
Christopher Rufo has been the one who has led the campaign against critical race theory. But if I remember correctly, the theory, critical race theory, actually was developed by or formulated by a Black woman, by the way. And the book that was placed under attack under congressional hearings, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it had to do with slavery, right? Was also led by a Black woman. And it's these attacks, these assaults that Dr. Jenkins is referring to, right? In terms of academics being careful, having to be careful. But we're also seeing, and I have to say this, whereas in the history, in recent history, and I'd say the last 50 years, the Democratic Party has positioned itself as a party of DEI, for lack of a better word, or the party of diversity, right? This is a partisanship effort to turn it against its ends, turn it against its tail. And Dr. Jenkins, I have to throw this at you, and it's sort of one of those things that blew my mind. One of the people that started making their media rounds against Dr. Gay, and that campaign that was led against her was horrific. It was publicly humiliating, and it really did criticize her whole academic background. And they ended up pointing to almost 50 cases that were kind of sort of maybe incidents, and it was just horrible. But anyway, one of those authors is Dr. Carol Swain, who is a legal professional and a PhD in political science. She's an African-American woman. And she's the author, Mary, of The Adversity of Diversity. So she's a conservative. Yes, on the, again, partisanship politics, right? The conservative side of the equation. And it's an effort to turn DEI on its head. But anyway, those were the points that I wanted to connect there.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Noemi, in particular, what do you think that those in higher ed and their allies should be doing to protect DEI policies?
I have to say I'm a Trojan, two-time Trojan. I sit on the board of the USC Gould School of Law. I'm also a Yale Bulldog through my so preference to Yale over Harvard. I'm sorry about that. Um, that specific question is an answer that universities are trying to figure out, as well as corporate America, because the next onslaught of legal attacks, right, is attacking supplier diversity in the corporate space, right, but also trying to ensure that the SCOTUS ruling around affirmative action in Harvard is enforced in universities nationwide. How do universities deal with that? Especially where recruitment and students are concerned. The next piece, right, is the Black women's piece. We have a Black women's nonprofit organization that has been attacked, right? And I forget the name of the organization that bit. And so we're
one that was doing the business help.
Right. And so what we're seeing is a whack-a-mole effect, right? Where there's numerous ways that DEI is being attacked. And so we have to figure out how to maneuver differently so that we enforce efforts on equity in different ways. And if we have to call it different from DEI, so be it. Right? But part of protecting that is protecting the academic component that teaches our history. Our history is part of what is being attacked. We're talking about books, right? Our history. The Civil War. Nikki Haley was famously on news over the last few weeks because she forgot to mention slavery as part of the Civil War. She also did something last week that not too many people have really focused on, and is that she referred to VP Harris and SCOTUS Ketanji Brown. She alluded that they were unqualified and only merited those roles because they were Black women.
Okay?
Yes, you got to pay attention to the partisanship. See, that's what I'm saying. But your question, Pam, how do we protect ourselves? I don't know. We're trying to figure that out. I don't have an answer for that yet. I will say this though. We have to be able to, the saying, we have to be able to chew gum and pop, walk at the same time. The civil rights movement in the US, and I'm referring specifically to African-American civil rights issues. There is a great focus right now on international affairs. Okay. And I think that's gotten a great deal of energy over the US issues that we're dealing with and discussing at this very moment, like critical race theory. Right. And I'm paying attention to that, wondering what is going on, what's happening. It's almost, I'll say it. I'm wondering, Pam, where are our African-American leaders, civil rights leaders on this issue?
On that whole thing. Do not get me started on that. Okay.
So we need to sort of refocus their attention back to our issues, right?
Where are they? Because Attorney Benjamin Crump is our private NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I'm sorry. Would you agree with me, Dr. Jenkins?
Do you really want to get me started? No.
And I love him dearly, but I'm trying to figure out what happened. I don't see that. Everybody has to call Benjamin Crump for everything.
It can't just be him.
Well, right? That's what it is.
But going back to the National Civil Rights Agenda, what is it? Where are these issues on it? How are we? How are Black women? How are allies? Right? Sort of knocking on the door, saying, "Hey, we need some attention here in these areas." Again, on the partisanship, I think that part of what's happened is that where civil rights issues are concerned, there's a great deal of focus right now on international war-related issues, and I'll just leave it at that, which is understandable. I understand it, but we can't just walk away and forget everything that's happening here, right? And focus all our energy, social media, PR on what's happening over there. That's part of the issue, part of the answer.
What were you saying, Deborah?
I just wanted to weigh in. I thought that was a wonderful question. It's one that's always in my head, and I'm always fighting walls because I don't have the people in front of me. And I'm talking about, where are our civil rights leaders? So I
What
have,
organizations that we
Pam knows I have a love-hate relationship
I
with the legacy organizations,
yes.
um, because here we are, and I mean, we've been told this for the last maybe 2 or 3 election cycles, for president, facing what really truly may be the most significant election of a president in our time.
Mhm.
Um, I won't, I do have influence. We all here on this platform know that we have influence, and I had to share with someone, that I won't be bullied into talking to Black people and frightening them, because 45 is yet running again and perhaps will be the candidate for the Republican Party. We have had civil rights organizations, the legacy civil rights organizations, in my opinion, have squandered the opportunity, the access they have to this current White House over the last 3 years, and they have not been going in and having audience with our president on behalf of needs that the Black community has. In 2020, the Congressional Black Caucus did a survey and asked Black people, their constituents, what are the primary issues? The primary issue that came back from respondents was reparations for descendants of enslaved people in the United States.
Mhm.
If you go from that point at which they took that survey and just do a Twitter search on the CBC, you will see that there are so many issues that are unrelated to Black descendants, Black descendants of chattel slavery here in the United States. You will see them supporting the international reparations movements rather than grassroots organizations that are trying to fight for our reparations. You will see the champion of HR 40, Sheila Jackson Lee, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, aborting it and running for mayor of Houston, which she just lost. So you
I
can't
know.
make up some of the things, the distractions from so-called Black leaders. I love to bring up Dr. Julia Hare, because she had, and God rest her soul, she had this wonderful, wonderful quote that I don't believe she knew at the time she was making. She said, "Don't ever make the mistake of believing that leading Blacks are Black leaders." And I think we have to sit with that, because leading Blacks are those that we see in front of the cameras all the time.
Right.
Black leaders are people like the three of us and our allies who are behind us, Mary. We're putting you in there as an ally behind us, right? So we have to begin to have pressure put on our elected officials. So I'm telling, a colleague of mine was saying, all these people talking about the Cat Williams interview, but nobody's talking about Trump and what he's trying to do. I say, you know what? Between January and April, let's let the civil rights organizations do what they do. For the rest of us, we have until from April until November to do what we do, because we're already sure about what the legacy civil rights organizations are going to do. They're going to tell us excuse me, I'm mixing up my words, to vote blue no matter who, without ever expecting anything in return. And that's just not good enough any longer.
No,
We are losing. We're losing and have been losing. It's time for us to be put in the winner spot.
yeah, yeah. Ooh, y'all, it's so, listen, that's a whole nother
The
show.
whole thing. It's the whole thing.
Whole nother show. It is. Let's talk about Christopher Rufo from Florida, who before was appointed by the Satan to the new college in Florida board. And let's bring up Ackman, William Ackman, whose wife literally at MIT did plagiarize. She plagiarized the whole big thing out of Wikipedia. Yeah, she did. And she said she's sorry.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry. She just said she was sorry. But that was legit. And then Ackman said that he's going to go after everybody now, including the Business Insider who dropped that story on her, and say, we're going to see what you've been doing academically or otherwise in your news reporting and what have you. So it's this, But as I mentioned to you ladies earlier before we came on the air, that Ackman technically is this big Democratic supporter financially. So I'm trying to figure out, and yet he was one of the loudest voices from Harvard that wanted Gay gone. He was not a supporter when he saw that Harvard was going to back her, and then Mr. Rufo did her in with all of this other his campaigning and whatnot. So how do we've got to increase our allyship? And I heard earlier today that to do so, we have to get white men to be allies. Mary, how do you think we can go about doing that? How can we bring white men into the mix? Because I have plenty, I don't have a lot of white male friends, but the ones that I have that have been tremendous allies for me for over 40 years. So what do we do? What do you think?
Well, I got to tell you, it hasn't been that long. I mean, it's only been recently, within the last year, that I came to that realization that, it's one thing for white women, who obviously, we're behind the ball on this too, right? Who benefits the most from the patriarchy other than white men? It's white women, or we think we do. We don't really, but we think our proximity to this power equals power for us. Well, the gig's up. Like, that's not true. But when I realized it was when every night when we're having dinner, I talk to my husband and I tell him what I learned that day. That poor man, every single day. Because this is how it happens. This is how it starts. It's these individual conversations. Each one of us has to take, you think, oh, it's not enough. You know what? It is enough. I mean, it's a start. And guess what? It's been a while ago, maybe 6 months ago, he sat through a DEI training at work, right? As they have them. Some of them are performative. I don't know whether this one was or not. But when it came time they were asking questions of the audience, where do you get your most of your information about this sort of thing? Who's taught you the most? He mentioned me.
All right.
Oh, it's working. And I hear him when he's having conversations with his family and friends. I hear him talking about some of these things.
Good.
It's a small thing, but I feel like it's one of the things that I try to do on my platforms is just to tell white women, you might not think you know everything or enough. I certainly don't. I get it wrong all the time. And then I have to go back and apologize. But you know what? You just have to get out there, make mistakes, and learn from things. And especially follow Black women and learn from them, for Pete's sake. I mean, it's not that difficult, because the grace that y'all have shown me, I'm just grateful. There are a lot of women out there doing the work and telling us this is what you need to do. And it's right. We have to support, we have to get behind and be supportive.
All right. Listen, I have a dear friend, Dr. Judy Foster Davis, who is a full professor at Eastern Michigan University. And she had texted me earlier today, and she said, Pam, I may have to drop in because she's been in academia forever, and she has something she's got to get off her chest. So I'm gonna bring Judy up. Judy, get it off your chest, girl.
How you doing? Hi, everybody.
Hi, Judy.
I wanted to say that the comments tonight have just been on point. Noemi's comments and Deborah's comments, because I've been in this higher education game now for over 30 years, and I'm getting to the end of my time in that. But one of the things that I wanted to say, I'm glad you brought up the information about Christopher Rufo, Bill Ackman, because what happened to Claudine Gay is it's a convergence of this, I call it a propaganda attack with socio-political ramifications that is rooted in my opinion, is rooted in fear. And when you look at what's happening with this ascension of Black women to these positions, you know, Claudine Gay at Harvard, look at what's happening with the January 6th Trump case and Judge Chuck King, and look at what Fonnie Willis is doing in Georgia and Tish James in New York, and it just goes on and on and on. And so, you know, Black women did not come to play. Mm-hmm. And so the pushback is, oh my God, we have to quash this. So here we are, and I think it's very telling that Claudine Gay is really the victim of this attack, because she's in education. Mm-hmm. And when you control education, mm-hmm. you can control the minds. This is why they want the books banned. Mm-hmm. This is why any histories dealing with people of color, mm-hmm. they want to suppress, and they want to take it out of the what was it, the AP course that, mm-hmm. I guess, I don't know what it looks like now. It's been, you know, watered down, and you know, wanting to throw the 1619 project out of the curricula, because, you know, there's a whole education program that's backed by the Pulitzer organization, mm-hmm. That's built around the 1619 project. So what I have seen happen is not that there's just mere, you know, criticism, but what we see is that the people associated with these either ideas or movements or curricula, they want to crush these people, just annihilate them. And it's viciousness that is just, I mean, it's just off the chain. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Mr. Rufo and that whole propaganda machine around critical race theory. Mm-hmm. I belong to an academic group. It's an international group of professors, multiracial, from all over the globe. And our group is called Race in the Marketplace, because I'm in the business school. I'm in the marketing department, and a lot of my work has had to do with the intersection of race in the marketplace in terms of the role of marketing professionals of color, advertising, public relations, and things like that. And those experiences and the experience of marginalization in those areas, you know, contributes to a lot of the problems that we see today in terms of what's marketed and how things are marketed, who's kept out of marketing decisions, so forth and so on. And when we look at what's happening with these ideas are being marketed. And they're being marketed very successfully. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we wonder, you know, we look at a person who is a twice impeached, 91 count indictment. I can't even keep count. You know, why there is such, it seems like a shield of protection around this person. Mm-hmm. When Claudine Gay, they said, oh, she forgot to put some quotes around some statement, mm-hmm. And want to call it plagiarism. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just insanity.
Yeah.
But propaganda marketing is very effective.
Yes, it is. No,
I have to say this on the topic of marketing and business, okay? Because I, you know, as everything was happening with Dr. Gay, And I certainly wasn't paying attention to it, but I had to look back and analyze what exactly was taking over the news cycles during that period of time, particularly with Black women. And as a force, as a marketing audience, right, as a political audience, Black women are a powerhouse. So much so that Black women, thanks to Black women, the Color Purple movie, right, went all the way to this top at this opening night. Okay. Why do I bring that up? Because that is what was galvanizing Black media news cycles during that period of time that Dr. Gay was in trouble. We didn't notice it, neither did press. We're not going to blame Oprah. Oprah was just taking care of business. However, Oprah, we need you to come over this way, right? And help galvanize some energy and movement around some civil rights issues. Okay. Black women gave you the win with, the Color Purple. But it's time to sort of galvanize that attention and push it through. I just, personal observation, right? When I went back and I looked at what was happening during that period of time, that's where everyone's focus was.
Was it? Dr. Jenkins, comments?
She's muted.
You got to unmute yourself.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I agree with you again, Noemi. Again, let me just move past that because I have some choice words that I could definitely use. But I do agree with you. During that time when everyone was caught up with the Color Purple, we also heard a voice from the cast. And that voice was Taraji P. Henson.
Yes, we did.
Saying that after having won an Oscar, after having proven herself time and time again, even in this movie that was executive produced by none other than Oprah, she had to fight for her salary yet again. And so I'll move past that because, yes, we do need Oprah to champion Black issues, but her history is very clear. Am I right? Her history is very clear. But to go back and try to honor one of your guest questions about affirmative action, I think I can't remember the moniker, slime one or some. I'm here one or.
Since here. I am here. Yeah,
since I'm here.
And a bunch of stuff in here. Y'all have this thing so loaded up on the chat. I can't.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the DEI piece. I believe that was her question early. It was really, really early on. And I had sort of been chomping at the bit to talk about it. And it sort of piggybacks off of what Mary had said about how white women have felt comfortable in their positioning because, they were so close to the real power in this country, white men, but now they are even waking up. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mary, but let's be very clear. Affirmative action was initially supposed to give uplift to Black men and Black women, when in reality, it has not. The statistics have proven over and over again, and even as it relates to more recent DEI statistics, that it is white women who have benefited most from both affirmative action and DEI appointments. And so in the lead up, I just wanted to see how our Fortune 500 companies were doing in terms of DEI appointments of CEOs. As of 2021, there were only 47 out of 500, 47 women in 2021 who were CEOs of companies. But guess what? It gets much, much worse for Black people, Black women and Black men. As of 2023, of the 500 Fortune 500 companies, there are only eight combined Black men and Black women, 5 of them being Black men. And I'm going to give the men a big ups because there is a concerted effort in this country, and there always has been, to ensure that Black men never rise. And so they always choose us as Black women over the Black men. But I say we're in the same ship, and we got to understand that we are rowing together. And that is why I fight so hard for reparations for myself, for my children, their children, and Black American descendants of enslaved people right here. right here in the United States. And we cannot always expect people to see what we know is true about the concerted effort to ensure that we never ever rise above a certain level. And that to me is evil, evil, because the intent is to destroy a people. And they've done a really good job. But back to your apology letter, Mary, yes, we are strong because we've had no choice but to be strong. And my suspicion is that my daughter, her daughters, and theirs will continue to be strong for the very same reasons, not always choosing to be strong, but having a necessity to be strong.
Mhm.
Can I add something to piggyback on Deborah's comments?
Yes.
Because I know I made my comments primarily in the context of education, but going back to Chris Rufo and the whole anti-CRT, anti-DEI movement, we have seen that affirmative action, as one example, has been dismantled in education. It doesn't stop there. Affirmative action with respect to corporate and private enterprise, in government, so forth and so on, is a part of the continuation of that through line to, as I agree with Deborah, to keep Black people and Black men in particular out of these roles of authority, or where they have some true power. So again, it's a power dynamic that cannot be dismissed anytime we talk about any of these attacks, the propaganda and the whole, it's like a whole machine that's behind it. And it's not just Donald Trump. There's a whole culture behind it.
Yes, there definitely is. There definitely is. I was going to ask you guys one other question. Noemi, did you have any other comment about the partisanship and the strategy against that?
I think this is a lead up towards the upcoming elections.
Mhm.
I think it's a lead up towards chopping away at VP Harris, particularly if she's being positioned to run as the Democratic candidate for president. Okay. And I say that to also say, listen, what happened to Dr. Gay is horrible. Let's not just focus on her, right? Unfortunately, we just have to look at it as, okay, that chip went down. Okay, what's next? Because it's not going to be the last piece, right? It's sort of like, what is the end goal here? There are a lot of end goals, right? To the point to the what the doctors on the platform stated. There's multiple end pieces. Corporate diversity is one of them, but ultimately, it's the elections that is upcoming, and so you have to make yourself ironclad. In terms of, again, the legislative agenda, the civil rights issues, who is being put forth to run for office. Obviously, if you're an academician, right, ironclad in terms of, your citations and all of that, which it already should be anyway. But anything that might be perceived as a weakness can be made one, is the lesson we learned here, right? Can be made one. But the bottom line is, it's not over. This is going to be a continuing threat and a continuing attack towards Black women, because you're a power force.
Yeah. Well, Mary, any comments?
There's so much, right? The one thing, there's a couple things, but the one thing that really hit me hard was that the people who are assuming that the claims, all these different claims, and whatever claims they want to throw out there, it doesn't matter. They just throw it out there and they keep repeating it because their propaganda machine is strong. The white people pretty much have this internalized bias about Black women, right? So it's that bias that also, it just, it's part of the problem, and we have to talk about it. And I think people who look like me need to be speaking up and need to be talking about it, because if we don't speak up about it, it doesn't get magnified in the way that it does if just, if y'all are speaking about it, other people don't hear it. Other people are deaf, and that's a problem.
And that's a fact. And that's a fact. That's a fact. So Dr. Jenkins, what are we gonna do about our legacy organizations?
I don't know. I mean, I'm committed to legacy, right? I think they need to be retooled. That's just the reality. They need to be retooled. There was a meeting called of clergy by one of those organizations this week after Bill Ackman attacked, just to respond rather to the Bill Ackman attack on Dr. Gay. I say that's all well and fine, but going back, like Noemi said, where were we all when this was actually starting? They typically have more insights than the rest of us, those of us who can get distracted by a movie or a Cat Williams or the like. They have this information. Why now? So what is their strategy? That's what I'm going to ask you as a strategist, Noemi. What is their strategy at this late date when she's already had to resign? And so we have to get to them, because they're the ones who have the ear of the president and our elected officials. They have the ear. So we have to get in front of them, and we may even have to start withholding our membership dues that allow them to do the things that they have been doing, but not on our behalf. So there's a lot that has to be done. Maybe, Pam, you need to have a show just about what are we going to do with the legacy civil rights organizations.
I intend to, because I had somebody from a local chapter on, God bless her, and she's in a rural area in North Carolina, and she is the first woman ever. Her name is Dawn, and I can't think of Dawn's last name. Normally she's in the chat, but she's in a rural part of North Carolina. But really and truly, we need to. There's some challenges there, and we gotta find out, what are they doing? What is going on? What is going on, Noemi?
I'd almost be afraid to talk about it online. It's definitely a longer offline conversation, Dr. Jenkins. But as someone who actually gets to see some of the, inner works of the Democratic Party, but also remember there are sub niches within the Democratic Party, right? Our revolution being one of them, which was spun out from Bernie, as well as the Working People's Party, right? I'm seeing a shift. There has been a shift in their prioritization for the past 2-3 years. Okay. And it's aligning with Dr. Jenkins and Pam, this thing that I'm talking about, right? Where there's been a shift to other issues as opposed to US based issues. And that's an internal discussion that is about mobilizing around those issues. And part of mobilizing around those issues is also making sure that the funding that those organizations prioritize are redirected back here, right? Back to US-based issues. But sometimes it is about calling out some of those national influencers to the table, right? Oprah Winfrey and other people to say, hey, yeah, we want your attention here. So you're right. It is about going to speak to those legacy organizations, to the leadership, but also to press, Black press. Hey, what's going on? We need our attention here.
Yeah, that's right.
At the end of the day, even within our own political groups or our own communities, we have our own special interests, right? Groups that are focused on special interests. And that's unfortunately what happens when a special interest redirects the focus.
Absolutely. Well, listen, our time is up. Ladies, I thank you for the first show of the new year. I hope that you all have a wonderfully blessed new year. And I thank the audience. They're still sending in chat stuff. I'm going to put them up real quick on here. All right, Marianne. Well, one thing about this, I can come back to it and I'll use information about the Harvard retraction or hit piece on the ADO. What does ADOS mean? I can't keep up with all these acronyms.
American Descendants of
Descendants of
Slavery, and it
Slavery.
was initiated here in Los Angeles.
The who? The what? What did you say?
American Descendants of Slavery.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and it was initiated here in Los Angeles by a former graduate of UCLA.
Okay, great. Well, I am appreciative of all of you guys in the audience. I hope you hit those like buttons, especially if you were on YouTube. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. It's a free way to support my channel. Hit the like on YouTube, on Facebook and LinkedIn. Share the video. Help me to continue to do this thing here, okay? And I thank you all for coming and have a good night. Let's wave them off, guys. Good night.